Russell Wilson's tenure as Giants QB1 officially starts on Sunday, but how much action does Brian Daboll give Jaxson? See what I did there? You guys aren't going to believe who Tyler Nubin told me who he thinks is going to get the first turnover of the year. And we're going to see what Paul says about Abdul going hunting for Jayden Daniels. Game 1 meets Episode 1. This is Blue Rush, presented by the New York Post Sports. What's up, everybody? G-Men, Giants fans, everybody wearing blue. Brandon London here, former Giants wide receiver and in-game MC. I'm joined by longtime Giants beat writer for the Post, Paul Schwartz. This is your first Blue Rush episode of the season, our weekly Giants show for the New York Post. It's week 1, Giants, Commanders. This game needs absolutely no introduction, Paul. We've been waiting for Giants football for about 8.5 months now, and when that pigskin is kicked off at 1 p.m. on Sunday down in the nation's capital, we are officially having Giants football on our plate for about 17 to 18 weeks, and hopefully even more. Paul, the hype is there. The excitement is there. I don't think I felt this excited going into a Giants football season for quite some time now. How you feeling, Paul? Welcome back. Welcome to season what for you?
With the Giants, 32.
Ooh.
32 covering the Giants. How good are you at spelling? You a pretty good speller, Brandon?
I'm A-OK at spelling.
Okay, yeah, as long as a spell check, right? Look,
And ChatGPT.
Is this week 1 WEEK1 or is it WEAK1? That's the question.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
It's been WEAK1 too often around these parts with the Giants, right? This has to be WEEK1. Okay, that's the end of my spelling lesson here. But this can't be just a week, not no show, but certainly your last couple of years under Brian Daboll, it's been weak, no show efforts in week 1. This has to be a strong week 1 showing. We'll see if they can win. But there's a lot of renewed optimism, a lot of vibrancy in the building. We'll see how that translates to the field.
Yeah, the Giants have been plagued by WEAK QB play in years past, but now it seems like they have their QB1. A lot of people have rallied behind the aura that Russell Wilson has. He's gone to Yankees games, courtside at Knicks games, the U.S. Open. He's really enjoyed the perks of being QB1 in New York City. But, Paul, now it's time for Russell Wilson to be QB1 in New York City. Your thoughts on Russ going into this first WEEK 1 against the Commanders?
Look, we're not going to keep spelling everything out, okay? I don't think either of our mental capacities will be able to do this.
Man.
You know what I mean? I like the way you phrase that. You know what? If this was all there was to it, Russell Wilson would be, the king, the mayor, the governor, the senator, everything. Going to games, pressing the flesh, being great with the media, being great with his teammates, being great in the community, being a great family man with his kids and his famous wife, right? I mean, Russell Wilson, that's easy stuff for him. What's been more difficult the last few years is the quarterback stuff. Yeah. And so that is really going to be fascinating to see what does he have left as far as all the quarterback stuff. Look, he was not a hot commodity on the open market, Brandon, right? I mean, there was not, the Giants better sign him before somebody else does. That's just not the case. The Giants wanted Matt Stafford ahead of him. They wanted Aaron Rodgers, believe it or not, ahead of him. And then they said, okay, those guys we can't get. We'll go for Russell Wilson. They've been thrilled with what he has done on and off the field, but that's done. You put away the preseason footballs, right? That's done. Yep. So starting Sunday at 1:00, we'll see. I don't see a quarterback at 36 years old who looks physically diminished, but it's preseason. It's 7-on-7. It's joint practices with the Jets. The rush is not coming full speed. He's not getting buried. So we'll see. I would think the people in Pittsburgh and in Denver will be watching and thinking, you know what, we think Russ is kind of washed, and I don't know what the Giants are thinking. The Giants think otherwise. We'll see how it plays out.
And it's almost like he's walked into a perfect situation, but at the end of the day, like, you can kind of look at it as where he's walked into a situation where he could be setting himself up for failure. It's like he's got everyone excited because of the aura that he's brought in. And like you said, he's done everything the right way. He is a giant. He is a consummate pro. He is what the Mariners would want as the face of their franchise. But now it's like, all right, now it's time to see that moon ball in action. Now it's time to see if you, like you said, if you still got some of that scrambling, the ability to make plays with your feet or extend a play with your feet and hit the receivers that we have on this team. Because what's the one thing I've been saying for forever, Paul, and you're probably going to be tired of me saying it right now, is we haven't been able to evaluate these Giants receivers. I think Darius Slayton had himself a very strong camp. No one's really been talking about that. You can see how the chemistry between Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt and Russell Wilson, you see that chemistry there. That's something that needs to be put on tape. And then you see him kind of unlocking and having this relationship with Theo Johnson, a guy that we think is going to take a huge step in year 2. He's put so much out there, but it's almost like an outline, Paul. Like you gave me a spelling lesson. I'm not going to give you a lesson here, but let me know if this is right when it comes to your writing. You see the game, you do what you got to do. You write some sort of outline first, right? And you got it. And that's what this preseason and this training camp has been for Russell Wilson. He's put together an impeccable outline. Now he's got to put together. Now it's time for him to write this final draft and submit it to the editors. This week 1, I feel as though it's like it's not like you have to go out and be Brady. You got to go out and be great. I think he has to be competent. I think he has to put some points on the board and be exciting. But on the flip side, he has a lot of people watching him to see if he still has it. But then he has a lot of people watching him because Jaxson Dart put so much good things on tape throughout, since he's been here since the spring. So Russell Wilson, QB1, Jaxson Dart, QB2. How long is this leash now that we've seen them both throughout from the spring to training camp to the preseason, Paul, in your eyes?
Well, I don't think it's a quick hook. I don't think it's like we're waiting for someone to succeed or fail, and at the first sign of failure, look, let's face it, that's what it was in 2019, right? Eli Manning was the established, beloved franchise quarterback, 2-time Super Bowl winner, and Eli knew, he's no dummy. He knew they drafted Daniel Jones in the first round of the NFL draft that year. But Eli was a starter, and Daniel was going to wait his turn. And Eli figured, I've got some time here before this kid's going to take my job. I need to play well on the field. And after 2 games, he was stunned that they said, okay, that's it. Yeah. Eli's on the bench and Daniel Jones is in the game. 2 games into the season, 2 losses. That was, Eli was hurt by that. So could that happen again? It could. Here's what I think. I think that the rope and the leash and the quick hook that I thought a month and a half ago is now shorter and quicker than it would have been because Jaxson Dart has looked so good. Did I think to start game 1 in Washington, it would be Russell Wilson as a starter? Yes. I thought it would be Jameis Winston as the 2 and Jaxson Dart as the emergency 3rd quarterback. What happens now is that the Giants have lost the ability to dictate when Jaxson Dart goes on the field, right? Instead of saying, we're going to wait, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, put Jaxson Dart in. Put him in at halftime. Now, Russell Wilson, we don't want to see this happen. In the 2nd quarter, if he turns his ankle, now it's out of the Giants' hands. Jaxson Dart has to go on the field as the backup quarterback. It is now a situational replacement, not a team decision replacement. And I didn't think the Giants wanted to do that. And what that tells me is that Jaxson Dart so impressed Brian Daboll that Brian Daboll is like, you know what? I can win with him now. I don't want him to start ahead of Russ, but I can win with him now. I think a very interesting dynamic at work here is Brian Daboll did not poo-poo this. We'll see if he was just playing coy or not. Does he put Jaxson Dart on the field at any time in a situational play, 3rd down, make the Commanders call timeout? Jaxson Dart's not Taysom Hill. That's not going to be his role, but it'll be interesting. I don't think that will happen because I don't think Jaxson Dart has a specific skill set that you say, just put him in and run the ball. I'm not so sure you want to do that with Jaxson Dart. but it's at least worth thinking about as we go into this first game. At some point, like he did in the preseason, is Brian Daboll just going to say, okay, Jaxson, go in, run this play. We'll see what this does to the Commanders' defense. Something to consider anyway.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous on that, Paul, because if Russ is cooking, I feel as though that if there is a package or something or a couple plays for Jaxson Dart, if Russ is cooking, I wonder could that mess up the rhythm? I wonder if he comes out, he's led the offense to a couple scoring drives and in a row, and he's got some sort of rhythm and flow. I don't want to necessarily say could that throw him off, but could that throw off just everything, like the rhythm of the offense and how they're flowing and going? I think the ideal situation, which a lot of people would hope that we see, is Jaxson Dart get cleanup minutes, some garbage minutes, but for the right reason, for the right reasons this time.
Now you're getting greedy, yeah. You're getting greedy. I mean, look, yes. I mean, of course, you know what I mean. Let the Giants be winning 28-7. With 4 minutes to go, and Dart gets the last drive to hand the ball off. But look, we can play around with this all we want. Look, if the Giants are winning 14-0, I don't think on the third drive they're going to put Jaxson Dart in to be cute, and so Brian Daboll can prove how smart he is. Look, it's all predicated on performance. You mentioned before about what does Russell Wilson have to do? The job of the quarterback is to get the team in position to win the game. So if it's a slugfest and low scoring, Russell Wilson's job is to hold on to the ball and give the Giants a chance to make, if they need to score 20 points, score 20 points. If it's a high scoring affair, it's Russell Wilson's job to win the game 31-30. I mean, that's the job of a quarterback. It is. It's not, well, our defense is having a rough day, so we can't win. It's Russell Wilson's job. He's been in the league. This will be his 200th NFL start. Okay, that's quite a milestone. I think only like 15 players in history have had that many. That's a lot. So Russell Wilson knows what to do. He knows what's expected. But, leadership goes so far. You've been in a huddle, right? Mm-hmm. Leadership in the preseason is one thing. And, Malik Nabers, he's basically staring at Russell Wilson. He said his fitness habits, he's watched Russell Wilson. He's like, I'm going to do what he tells me, and I'm trying to follow him because I want to be in the league 14 years. So that's great. That's awesome for Malik Nabers and for that relationship. But, down 17-3 and the quarterback's scuffling and the offense is scuffling, that's when the leadership has to kick in, because now the guys are looking in Russell Wilson's eyes, and it's like, does this dude have it anymore? Does he have the answers for me? So, all these things will play out. There'll be good moments, there'll be bad moments. We'll see if there's more good moments than bad moments.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever have to worry about Russell Wilson's leadership. Like you said, with all those career games, he's been down before, and I feel as though just the way he carries himself, he's built for moments. Like, he's built for the moment. Paul, we see a lot of guys that we can look at and be like, man, that guy's good. Man, that guy's got all the tangibles. But that it factor, there's a lot of athletes that just don't have that mental toughness, and it's like Russell Wilson has shown to be one of those guys. And you mentioned Malik Nabers. I was in the locker room yesterday, and it's like you're looking at these two lockers right next to each other. Russell Wilson's right there, Malik Nabers right next to it. They've got about 50, 60 pairs of cleats between the two of them. It's a lot of stuff in both of their lockers. But you look at it, I look at it like, is Malik Nabers, could he be the best wide receiver, one, that Russell Wilson has had to throw to in his career? And you hear these two talk about each other, and Russ before, but when he got here to East Rutherford, talking about Malik Nabers, how excited he was to throw the football to Malik Nabers. We saw him in practice, but we weren't able to see it during the preseason. Now, I think it's that relationship, it's there for the entire NFL to watch, and hopefully everyone can enjoy this relationship like it's a Kirk Cousins throwing to Jamar Jefferson, or even Joe Burrow throwing to Jamar Chase. But this duo, Paul, I feel as though has a chance to be one of the best duos in Giants history. There's a lot of ifs still involved. But those two, man, they really cooked throughout the training camp. You hope that carries over now at game speed, real game speed.
Yeah, but we also have to remember this is the first game. This is Russell Wilson's first game. So you just have to remember that. You know what I mean? And they didn't play a lot in the preseason together, played a lot in training camp together. So there will be growing pains. I mean, they just will be. You know what I mean? Even though this is Russell Wilson's first year in this system, it's his 14th year in the league. As I mentioned, 200th start, but it's his first game in this system. And I don't know any quarterback who says, my first game in a new system was the best game I've ever had. Could be a good game, but so there will be growing pains. There will be some communication issues. I'm sure there will be. Giants have to fight through that, have to, limit turnovers, things like that. And, it'll just be interesting. It'll be really interesting to see the Russell Wilson as a guy, as a leader, as all this stuff is immaculate. But his career numbers, his career trending is downward. It's downward. That's all it is. He's become a vagabond journeyman quarterback right now, right? This is his fourth team in 5 years. So, that is just the facts. And Seattle at one point said, okay, thank you, Russ. You've been great. We've had enough. Denver pretty quickly, and it lasted only 2 years with Sean Payton. Thank you very much. We've had more than enough. They sat him at the end. And Pittsburgh, after a good start and a bad finish, Mike Tomlin said, thank you, we've had enough. And, sold their soul to get Aaron Rodgers, who's 5 years older than Russell Wilson. So, those things are there in my mind. They're in a lot of people's minds. They're in the NFL's mind too, which is why outside the building, not many people think the Giants are any good or think that Russell Wilson is going to have this great, resurgence late in his career. It can be done. People have done it, but the odds are against it. So it'll be interesting to see if he can buck those odds and actually do it.
Yep. Feed Malik Nabers, feed him early. I mean, you see the game he had against the Commanders week 2. That was kind of his breakout game. I mean, if he didn't have that drop at the end, it would have been almost the perfect game for a wide receiver. So if get that guy, get the ball when in doubt. And, I think one thing that Russell Wilson has going for him that the Daniel Joneses and those guys didn't have is I think we're going to watch a better offensive line for the Giants this year. They got another year together, another year with the same position coach. But the biggest question now when it comes to the offensive line, Paul, is Andrew Thomas going to play? He was limited at the full padded practice on Wednesday. We'll see if he practices with he'll probably practice today and Friday as well. But do you think that the Giants still have a shot in this game if Andrew Thomas isn't 100% and can't play?
Well, if they don't, it's an indictment of the front office, okay? Because this is the same starting offensive line group. Incredibly, the Giants offensive line, was really heavily criticized last year and for about the last decade, and they brought all 5 starters back. Continuity is great, right? Everyone says with an offensive line, right? 5 fingers, fist, 1 hand, all that stuff, right? They have to work in unison, and they're back. These guys know each other. That's a real plus. But when I go down this line and go, man by man, this is not a bunch of world beaters. It's not the biggest offensive line. It's not the most athletic. It's certainly not the most powerful. I think it's a very smart offensive line. I think it's got the right mix of guys, but, John Runyon's a good player. Greg Van Roten is a really smart player, but he's no powerhouse blocker. His physical attributes this late in his career at age 35 are not, what you would say top level. John Michael Schmitz is a evolving center who people outside the building have much less regard for than people inside the building. Jermaine Illuminor is a good player, but he's not a Pro Bowler. You know what I mean? He's not Kareem McKenzie at his prime. So yet, I don't think so. And it all hinges on Andrew Thomas. Do I think he will play? I don't know. I think he can play if they really want to push it. Now the question is, can they risk further injury on that surgically repaired foot? If there's any chance of yes, he can't play. I don't think that will be the case. But if he starts, can he finish? I mean, is there any way, shape, or form Andrew Thomas can go in and you can expect him to get 65 or 68 snaps? I don't think so. So James Hudson has to be on deck no matter what, I think. I mean, I don't think you can expect a guy go from 0 to 60 in one game. So we'll see. We'll see. With Andrew Thomas as a peak left tackle, there are reasons to think this offensive line can fall into place. Without him, it's much murkier to see that happen.
And I wonder, let's say Andrew Thomas is ready to play, but he can't go a full 60 plays, like you said. I wonder if they now have like some sort of package for him to where he comes in and he reports. You give him about 5 plays in this first game and see where he's at going into Dallas, who doesn't have Michael Parsons anymore. So I wonder how they're going to kind of ease him in and get him back into play. Remember when he did come off a PUP and Brian Daboll spoke to the media that time, he was saying like this date was where they were kind of aiming to. This was a milestone, and they hit that milestone. So we don't know what they're thinking on the other end of it, but I wonder, since they're on pace, I guess, how do they ease him in and get him involved in the offense somehow, some way? Paul, we've talked about Russell Wilson throwing to Malik Nabers, talked about the run game, we talked about Andrew Thomas and all, but what we haven't really talked about, or no one's really talking about, is who's calling the plays. No one. Have you heard anything? Like I don't remember anyone asking Daboll or him giving some sort of definitive answers on if Mike Kafka's going to call the plays or if Brian Daboll's going to call the plays. If you had to, I guess right now, who would you think is controlling the headset on Sunday?
Well, all you need is eyes and ears, right, to see what's happening all summer. I mean, it's going to be Mike Kafka, and Brian Daboll is not going to come out. I mean, that's just not his way. All right, guys, ask the question of, who's calling plays. Yeah, I'm going to have Mike call the plays. He's done a great job. I don't think he wants to announce that. He doesn't like announcing lineup changes, starting changes, coaching changes. It just kind of evolves. But I see no reason why they will change from what they did all summer. Why would they let Mike Kafka call all the plays all summer in all the preseason games and then say, okay, that was a nice test, but I'm calling the plays again? They have faith in Mike Kafka. I know Brian Daboll does. The league does. The league really thinks very highly of Mike Kafka. Yep. I mean, the odds of Mike Kafka being a head coach, I think, are high in this league. They almost lost him after 1 year. After 2022, he got serious inquiries and consideration for head coaching jobs. So, that Andy Reid tree, that Andy Reid lineage with Mike Kafka is real, and the Giants respect that, and the league respects it. So I think the big question is, where does Mike Kafka call the plays from? He experimented with calling the plays on the sidelines in 2022 and most of 2023. He did it from the press box. And I think there are pluses and minuses to both. And Brian Daboll has spoken about that because he's been a play caller for many years. In the press box, up in the booth, it's quiet. You can think. You don't have the emotions of the game, the emotions of, you can see, right? You have the vision of looking down on everything, and you can kind of just be in your thoughts and call the plays. You lose a little bit of that, hand to hand, mano a mano, talking to Russell Wilson, talking to the Malik Nabers. They can pick up the headset and talk to the offensive coordinator in the booth, but that chemistry on the field, sometimes you want to feel that. So that will be interesting to see. Daboll said he's done both of those. I don't have a guess where he'll be. I imagine he'll be in the booth, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's not. And this is a real, it's a change from Daboll, because Daboll is a I wouldn't call him a control freak, but it's his offense. It's his baby, and he wants to control it. And he took it over, last year because they had a bad offense, and they still had a bad offense with him calling the plays. So I think the front office is happy with this, that he's giving up calling the plays, so he can look at the whole game and not be like this, right? Not be like this. Or, this is offensive play calls, right? You see this during the game, right? They're like this. No one wants to see their face. And that's fine. Andy Reid does it, and and he lets some, Steve Spagnuolo calls the defense, and he has very little to do with the defense. And he's a great coach. I get it. This is a common sight in the NFL, but I don't like it. I like when a coach is looking at the whole thing and seeing the whole thing, and that's what Brian Daboll will be able to do this year.
It's funny when you put the sheet up, the play call sheet. I'm thinking when it was Ben McAdoo, it would cover the entire screen because he had like a cheesecake menu when it came to his play calling sheet. So yeah, and Mike Kafka, I think he kind of re-earned it per se, Paul, because yeah, he handled that demotion well last year. You heard a lot of the players saying how involved he still was when it came to install, talking to them on the sideline, kind of being that liaison or that bridge from being able to get to Daboll. Because like you said, he's got to manage a game as head coach, may not be able to go back to that bench and talk to the receivers and quarterbacks. So a lot of those guys talked about how involved Mike Kafka was. So it's going to be interesting to see Mike Kafka call plays for a quarterback not named Daniel Jones, because that's all he got to call plays for when he was here. So, I mean, if he can get Russ cooking or Jaxson Dart throwing darts, then he may be up for another head coaching job at the end of the year. But it's just one of those things we're going to keep an eye on. Paul, everyone is ready to keep an eye on this Giants offense. And I went into the locker room on Wednesday, and I had to see what the vibes of the offense was like going into Sunday. So I caught up with Tyrone Tracy Jr. and this edition of London in the Locker Room. All right, B. London in the locker room with second-year Giants running back Tyrone Tracy Jr., who is familiar and a friend of the New York Post Sports. Came into the studio before. Now you came to the studio. Now I'm in your locker room. Now I'm in your hood. Now I see the smile on the face. T-Noob was talking about how excited he is and this rookie class is going into their second year. I guess now that we're only days away from that first game, man, how you feeling and how you feel? Where do you feel the offense is going into Sunday?
I mean, personally, I think, I feel good. I feel really good about myself, where I'm at, how I feel, my body. I think the name of the game is to stay healthy, and right now I feel really good, and then I think, my skill set, my confidence, my football IQ, I think all that is there as well. Right now I'm just trying to go out there and play free, go out there and not try to, press for anything, just making sure that the game comes to me, and just making sure that at the end of the day, I'm doing, whatever it takes, so we can be successful. I think our offense is taking strides each and every day. Obviously, you might have a day that's, a little worse than the other, but each and every day we're taking a step forward in the right direction. But yeah, I think we have all the pieces, to the puzzle. I think that, we have good offensive coordinator, good head coach. I think we got a good team, behind us just to make sure that we go out there and play good.
Break down that football IQ for me, because T. Nubin said the same thing. He said he's confident, he says he's comfortable. You're hearing words like that. It's like y'all are media trained, like y'all are working together. But for a running back, second year, Mike Kafka, Brian Daboll system. Yep. What does that football IQ mean? Like kind of take us into your world in terms of how comfortable you are with the playbook and just going into your second year.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, this football IQ is playbook. That's the first thing. Understanding the playbook, hearing a play call, knowing exactly what to do, where to go, lineman assignment, and getting the job done. That's first things first. Second level of football IQ is defense recognition, understanding, 4 up, 5 up, bare front, diamond. You got, different types of linebackers, the way they blitz, how they're blitzing, safety rotation, all different types of stuff that's out there for football IQ. I think the third level is really for a running back is the coverages, understanding coverages, and then putting it all together. I think that once you understand coverage, you understand pass rush, and you understand like the rush lanes that the defense is going to do, makes it easier for me as a running back to know, where to rush, but then at the same time understanding that, pass block and pass protection is essential for a running back. So when you have all that together, it makes it easier.
It's funny. I was home at Virginia this weekend. I couldn't help my niece with her math homework, but I understood everything you just said just now. It makes me want to get back into the locker room and on the field.
You was here.
And yeah, man, it never leaves you. So talking about Washington, this defense, you got guys like Bobby Wagner, Deron Payne. You've got pretty solid defense. Like how do you guys attack them? Like where can you guys create that big play?
I mean, I think that everything starts from the run game. I think if we can run the ball well, I think a lot of stuff will open up. But I mean, I think we're just gonna focus on us. I think that we have a good offense. So I think if we can do what we do and do it at a high level and do it really well, I think we will be just fine throughout the game. But I think before we even get to the game, we gotta do it on throughout the week. I'm saying today's only Wednesday, so we still got Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to execute at a high level and do what we need to do on the football field before we even get to Sunday. Because if you don't do it, these next 3 days, next 4 days, you're never going to do it on Sundays. You don't just flip a switch and then, just run for 100 yards. You know what I'm saying? You got to run for 100 yards every day, and hammer it every day. And then on Sunday, and that's when you go out there and play free and just allow your skill set and the confidence and your preparation to take over.
Last but not least, and you can't say you, who scores the first touchdown?
I can't say me.
You can't say you.
I was Malik. I go with Malik. Obviously, I feel like that's solid. That's a solid pick. Yeah. But if I could say me, I would definitely say Tyrone Tracy Jr.
Without a doubt, man. We hoping you get into the end zone, and we hope you guys get that dub, man. Appreciate you, bro. Paul, he talked a lot. You heard him talk a lot about him going into his second year with his football IQ getting better, and that's just. Everyone says you make that jump. A lot of guys looking to make that year 1 to year 2 jump. Tyrone Tracy Jr., we're expecting him to have a great jump. Tyler Nubin, I spoke to him as well. We'll see that interview. We're expecting him to have that second-year jump. But the Giants are playing a guy that we don't want to have that second-year jump, and that's Jayden Daniels. You talked about how Brian Daboll loved Jayden Daniels in the 2024 draft. How do you stop him, Paul? Like, if I was to give you my Madden controller and you had to be defensive coordinator we were on a Madden team, how would you try and stop Jayden Daniels? Because, this kid is unreal.
He had a remarkable rookie year. He really did. It was remarkable. And I think the first thing you got to do is figure out if he has a pulse. Does the guy looks like he doesn't have a pulse. He doesn't look like he's working hard as far as athletically. He doesn't look like he's gassed. He doesn't. He just right. He doesn't look like he's got any emotion really. He was, he's a skinny guy, but he looks like you can't, you knock him down, he gets right back up. He's got this serenity about him. He's got great talent. They used him remarkably well. Now, early in the season last year, they didn't have a lot of real risks for him. He made all the plays. He was terrific against the Giants. Yeah, Brian Daboll loved him, loved everything about him. They were, salivating to try to trade up. You don't trade up and get a guy like that because you don't trade a guy like that. You don't trade the ability to pick a guy like that, and the Commanders obviously did not do that. Do you spy him? Do you spy him because he's such a good runner? It's easy to say spy a guy. It's just like in basketball, you say you got to use a box and one on a guy. You use a box and one on a guy, you might be able to contain that guy, but you wreck your whole defense in a lot of other areas. You can spy him, but that takes a player away from a lot of other things, especially if it's a key player, a guy like Abdul, who would be kind of the natural guy to spy, and you're kind of allowing the Commanders to dictate how you use that spy by how you use your quarterback. So I don't know if you do that on a down by down basis. It has to be a really a team thing with him. Certainly set the edges, don't let him get outside. You have to hit him legally so he doesn't want to run as much as he can do, certainly. And look, your offense has to control the ball and keep them off the field. You have to keep him off the field because he is really, really, and I mean really hard to get off the field because, third and, anything 6, 7, 8, 5, he's really hard to stop because he can run, he can roll, he can flip it to somebody. The play is rarely dead with him. So, we'll see. You said, the second year leap. I don't know how high he can leap. You know what I mean? He's not Superman. He was pretty high last year, so we'll see. But maybe getting him early is a good thing. I don't know. Look, the Giants were very competitive in both games against the Commanders last year, but Jayden Daniels was terrific in both those games.
Yeah, and I break down. I got some film, a little film session later on in the show where I kind of break down how they can try and stop them. I like what you were saying about, are you going to spy? You got to, keep in the right levels in terms of your pass rush. There's got to be gap discipline and then angles. I don't think people understood or knew how fast his game speed was going to be last year, to where there was a couple times last year, there was a 3rd and 14, 3rd and 6, I believe, where he just took off and he broke fast guys' angles, DBs, Brian Burns, Kayvon, like he was breaking guys' angles I don't think people understand how fast he is. So that's just one of those things, like when they rush up the, on the outsides, they're going to have to replace their steps and go right back down and try and cut him off before Jayden Daniels kind of hits that open gap and just takes off, because he's going to be all, I mean, this kid is all world. I did not expect him to be this good. But you know what, Paul? I think everyone talks about this Giants D-line, this new pass rush. And you know how they've kind of downplayed the hype, saying like, oh, they look good on paper, but they have to go out and show it. A lot of people, if you're a pass rush or, if you're just a person, you wouldn't want to go up against a guy like a Jayden Daniels or have a task of stopping a Jayden Daniels when you're trying to show the world or prove to the world that you're a top 5 pass rush, one of the best D-lines in the league. But now you throw in the Abdul Carter, you sub him out for Azeez Ojulari. You've got Kayvon, who looks the best he's been since he's been here. Brian Burns, I mean, we can agree that he had himself a solid camp, an extraordinary camp. And then Dexter Lawrence. There's a lot of expectations on this defensive line, Paul. So I guess who would you say, which one of these guys would you put the most expectations on for week 1? Like who are you waiting to see come out and have themselves a breakout game week 1 against the Commanders?
Well, look, I can't wait to see Abdul Carter, right? I mean, I just can't wait to see him because he's been great in the summer and he's got that edge to him, and he's a nasty player, in a good way. We think he's going to be a great player. So yeah, I can't wait to see him. But I think, I'm expecting a certain level from him. Look, and there'll be a learning curve and all that stuff. I get it. But to me, I'm really, really focused on Kayvon Thibodeaux because, he was the 5th pick in the draft a few years ago. And, 2 years ago, he had 11.5 sacks. Last year, he got hurt. His numbers went down. But, to be a part of this supposedly great defensive front, your players have to play great. Brian Burns is a much more proven player than Kayvon Thibodeaux, obviously. Dexter Lawrence is the most proven player. I mean, he's the best nose tackle in the league. We expect very good and strong things from Abdul Carter. But Kayvon is kind of like, the furniture, he's still there. They haven't replaced him. He's still that couch over there in the den. And they picked up his 5th-year option, so he's not playing for a contract. He's contractually bound to the Giants this year and next year, so that's good. But in a perfect world, Kayvon, after 3 years, they would have done what they did to Andrew Thomas and to Dexter Lawrence. They would have given him the big bag, right? They would have given him the big extension, and Kayvon did not earn that with his play and because he got hurt. So they gave him the 1-year, 5th-year option extension as a replacement for that. So I'm looking at Kayvon Thibodeaux. Is he ready to make a statement about himself? Is he a good player? Is he a great player? Is he a guy you're always going to want more from? I think right now Giants fans want more from Kayvon, right? And Kayvon carries himself. He says, I'm always going to be after Strahan sack numbers and things like that. Great, shoot for the moon, right? But he hasn't done anything to make you think that he is going to be a regular every year in, year out double-digit sack guy. So the one thing I do know is that you're not going to be reading and talking about Kayvon's doubled on every play. Kayvon's doubled on every play. How can he get through when they got a defense, they got an offensive tackle and a tight end chipping him every play. That ain't happening this year. That ain't happening with Brian Burns and with Abdul Carter and with Dexter Lawrence. So let's see if Kayvon Thibodeaux can have a breakout year.
Yeah, this game has to be his reintroduction. A lot like Jay-Z's got a song out where it starts off when he's saying, "Allow me to reintroduce myself." Kayvon has done all the right things, from the wrestling in the offseason to how he came looking in great shape, looked leaner, looked like a bulky lean. It was more like ground turkey instead of ground beef, nice and lean. Has done all the right things. You hear Brian Burns talk about him, how he's a man possessed, came in possessed, had to fight with Jermaine O'Neal and all those guys during the spring. He took the nasty pill and he's ready to come out and he's ready to come out, have a strong season. And this is the team that he's had the most success with when it comes to him and the numbers, his production. So this is the week. If Kayvon, if he wants to go out and have that fan base be like, okay, maybe I slept on Kayvon a little bit. This dude came out week 1, had 2 sacks, 1.5 sacks, X amount of tackles. He was all over the field. This is the week for him to do that. And he's going to have to do that, Paul, because there's still somewhat of a question mark around some of the one position in the Giants secondary. Now, one thing I'm excited about when it comes to this game is this is the first look we get at the money. Paulson Adebo, Javon Holland. What was that? Around $99 million spent on 2 players. 4 INTs in the Giants secondary last season, Paul. 5 total on the season, and that extra one was by Darius Musa. They've got the turnover chest this year. We saw turnovers galore in training camp. But my biggest question, or not even a question, this is what I want. This is what I'm putting out there. Can someone please take that CB2 spot this game? I do not want to go into next week against Dallas, George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, wondering, all right, who's Paulson Adebo going to have to match up with and what are they going to have to do with either Flott or Banks? Can someone go out and use this game and take that CB2 spot? Because you've got Deebo Samuel, you've got McCaffrey, you've got Terry McLaurin. There's enough wide receivers to go around to make plays on. Cordell Flott made a play on Garrett Wilson in the preseason. So now expand on that. Tay Banks has done pretty much all the right things so far, said some of the right things, has his teammates saying the right things for him. Go out there and show that you're that first-round pick. So I can't wait to watch this secondary, Paul, but specifically, my eyes are going to be glued on whichever corner is in that game, and I'm wondering, how do they rotate these guys? How would you rotate these guys? Who gets to start for you?
Well, you say your eyes are on that position. Jayden Daniels' eyes are going to be on that position. Yeah. You know what I mean? Look. Almost every defense in the league, you don't go 1 through 11 and say it's a vice grip. You know, there's no weaknesses. That's what offenses do. They try to exploit what they perceive as weaknesses. You know, so very rarely does team doesn't have 11 Pro Bowlers there. So I think it might be situational, game to game. I really do. You know, I don't think either of these players, Cordell Flott or Deonte Banks, is like, okay, you won the job, you're the starter. That's the way it works. You have a Deebo Samuel out there, right? I think that Deonte Banks matches up better with Deebo Samuel than Cordell Flott does. He's stronger, he's bigger. So I think that's, he's certainly fast enough. So I think that's a matchup that would favor Deonte Banks in this game. So maybe they do that, and maybe next week they use Cordell Flott. I believe that the coaching staff thinks that Deonte Banks is the more talented player. It's just a matter, can they trust him? Will he be consistent? Will he get his head turned around? Will he not be too handsy and commit a pass interference or a holding penalty that he didn't have to commit because he's in good position? He just didn't finish the play. Cordell Flott is probably more consistent, maybe less physical, less aggressive. Right now it's an area that needs to be watched and, should be considered an area of concern until proven otherwise. One thing about Adebo and, assuming he's going to go against Terry McLaurin, Terry McLaurin lined up on the left side almost all the time for the Commanders. And Adebo, when he was with the Saints, lined up on the right side. So I don't know if that's a matchup situation. I don't know. We'll see what Shane Bowen does here with that, but I don't sense that they want Paulson and Adebo to match up with the best receiver and travel with him side to side. Maybe once in a while, but I don't know if we're going to get a steady diet of that. I really don't. So, Deonte Banks may have to get some of Terry McLaurin too, and Terry McLaurin has done quite well against Deonte Banks in their time going against each other.
Yeah, and I got to throw an apology to Tay Banks because yesterday in the locker room, I go up to him. I'm like, "Oh, you going to the crib? You from DMV?" He goes, man, I'm from Baltimore, so my bad on that. But you know, if he does have to match up against Terry McLaurin, I imagine that Shane Bowen will put some sort of safety over the top, whether it be Tyler Nubin or Javon Holland. I think Javon Holland is going to be a name that we hear a lot on Sunday. He is going to be an upgrade at that position. One person that we really didn't talk about much during the preseason and training camp is Tyler Nubin. Going into his second year, there are a lot of big things that are expected out of him, especially being that ball hawk coming out of Minnesota. I got a chance to catch up with him in the locker room yesterday. Paul, wait till you see who he thinks is going to get force the first turnover of the season.
See, Noob, days away from the season opener. I see you bouncing. You got some bounce in you. You got the smile. I guess, how are you feeling? And where do you feel the defense is at days away?
Man, I feel great, man. I feel like we're in a really good spot, bro. We got a bunch of hungry dogs that's ready to go.
You personally, ball hawk throughout college. You had a huge year last year in your rookie season that got cut short by injury. I guess, how do you feel personally going into this year? What type of expectations have you put on yourself in your second year?
Man, I feel a lot more confident, man. I feel a lot more comfortable out there. You know, being a rookie, you know, you just trying to, you know, figure it out for real. So last year was a lot of learning experiences for me, but, you know, now I've seen a lot. So, you know, I can kind of anticipate and go. So, you know, I'm just ready to attack it.
Go deeper for me on that in the details with our audience. When you talk about being comfortable and being confident, Coach Coughlin, my rookie year here, used to say no and no you know, talking about the playbook. So one, how comfortable are you with the playbook, Shane Bowen's defense's second year, and just overall football savvy?
Yeah, I mean, it's night and day, bro. Like with our playbook especially, I don't have to think anymore. So, you know, the calls are coming out, you know, second nature now. So I can focus on, you know, what the offense is doing and the things that they're doing, how they lining up, you know, splits, things like that to help me, you know, execute my game and my coverage. So last year was, you know, I was thinking about what the call was, and I got to think about what the offense is doing. But, you know, now it's second nature with the calls, and I can, you know, focus on the other side.
This will be your third time going up against the Commanders. Last year, you guys played them tough both times. I mean, how much different are they from an offensive standpoint this year compared to where they were at? What was that, week 9 you guys played them last?
Oh man, they added, of course, Debo. You know, he's a, you know, special player, guy that, you know, they can get the ball to him at any time. He can make something happen. So yeah, they definitely, you know, got better in that perspective. You know, I know they, you know, heavied up front. You know, got Tunsil on the outside now. So you know, I'm ready for the challenge, man. You know, it's a challenging offense. They do a lot of things that are different than a lot of teams in the NFL, but we're ready. We're ready.
How big would an opening week dub be for this team? Like, do you feel as though this will set the tone for the season?
For sure, man. I think all 32 teams want to start fast. You know, that's how you set the tone for the rest of the season. So, you know, that's been our goal from day one, to start fast, and that's going to do it for us, for sure.
Lastly, you guys got the turnover chest this year. You guys been dunking it. I seen a couple of windmills. Who gets the first turnover of the season?
Man, me. I'm
outside of you.
Oh man, I feel like it's gonna be either me, Vaughn, or Bob. I feel like Bobby's he got nose for the football, so we gonna see. I mean, might have to put a couple bets up there together, see who can get the first one.
All right, man. Good luck and enjoy it, man. Enjoy it.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, Paul, we heard from Tyler Nubin. I broke down how the Giants defense can or has stopped or contained Jayden Daniels in those 2 games last season. I'm going to pass it to Paul right now. Final thoughts. Wrap us up, Paul.
Pass it to Paul. All right, I can't fumble this then, right? Yeah, no fumbles will get me on the bench for the Blue Rush podcast next week, right? Look, Brian Daboll has done a lot of things different this spring and summer to prevent the football atrocities that took place the last 2 years, right? They lost 40-0 to Dallas 2 years ago. What was it last year? 28-6 last year against the Vikings. Both games at home, terrible performances. And, you know, Brian Daboll doesn't like to come out and says we're making a lot of changes because of that. But he did make a lot of changes because of that to get his team more ready to play his starters. He played them in the preseason, the first 2 games. He didn't do much of that the last 2 years. So this is all about getting the team ready to play week 1. This is a team on paper. It is a 3-win Giants team from last year against a 12-win Commanders. They won 12 games last year, and Commanders are playing at home, so big advantage to the Commanders. But the 2 games last year were won by a total of 8 points by the Commanders. The first game was ridiculous. The Giants lost their kicker, Graham Gano. They couldn't try extra points. The Giants, this is almost a remarkable stat, and it's true. In the game they lost to the Commanders, was it 21-18? The Giants outscored them 3 touchdowns to none and lost the game. I mean, that is not unheard of. That's unheard of. You score 3 touchdowns, the other team scores none, and you lose? I mean, it's a lot of field goals, right? And it's a lot of non-2-point conversions and non-extra points because you don't have a kicker. So that was ridiculous. So this was the team that before last year, the Giants were always able to handle, play well against, beat or tie, occasionally lose. Last year, the worm turned. A lot was that because of Jayden Daniels. So it's not a game the Giants are favored to win, certainly, but it's a game I think the Giants can win. It'll be very interesting. It's a very familiar team in a lot of ways, the Giants, with a new quarterback. And the Giants think a new quarterback is going to make all the difference. We start seeing the truth or the folly of that mindset Sunday, 1:00.
And I can't wait. It feels like, I mean, it's so close, but it still feels so far away. We now get to talk football, though, Paul. We're not content creators. We get to talk football, and that's the best part of it, especially when things kick off on Sunday. A lot of people have been waiting for this season to open for the Giants. Thank you guys for watching the first episode of Blue Rush on the season. Make sure you guys lock in with us immediately after the game for your Blue Rush post-game show. There's going to be live reactions from myself and a special New York Post Sports columnist. This year, we're going to take Blue Rush to another level. So tell a friend to like, subscribe, share all of our content. We've got some cool giveaways for you all this year, and we're going to have some special guests joining the show throughout the season. So pick a podcast platform and stream us. For Brandon London, Paul Schwartz, thanks for watching Blue Rush.